All right, so my name is Enrique Dreyer, and I've been working on Aces and Adventures for about 2 years now, almost 2 years. Before that, I worked on Pop-Up Dungeon and Ring Runner. And we went on Kickstarter. The Kickstarter is nearly completed. We have got 3 days left as the shooting of this video. And today I'm talking to...
Mazi. I am the game director of Shattered Heaven from Leonardo Production. We have been working on the game for 1 year and a half, and we are releasing in early access in October. And we are here today because we both did card games, even though they are very different, two very different experiences. And we thought it would be lovely to share, our experiences and the difference, because I think that both the games are extremely cool, especially if you're into card games overall.
Mm-hmm.
The idea is really cool. Where did you take inspiration from, and where that the idea of the project came out?
Right. So Aces and Adventures has been kind of brewing for a very long time. When we were doing Pop-Up Dungeon, we created a game called Dungeons and Deuces, a much more comically named game that used similar sort of playing cards, RPG kind of things. And at that point, we kind of realized that there are two ways that this game that we had just started forming could go. One is more towards a Dungeons and Dragons route. And so something that would be an alternative to Dungeons and Dragons, but instead of using dice, you use playing cards. But that's a much more involved system. It can get very complex. You need to know about weights and, encumbrances and all this stuff. So, that was something that was going to be better served as a separate project. Trying to combine the two is very awkward. And so we decided to first make the faster paced sort of, in this case, a roguelike deck builder that's, digital, whereas the other one will probably be mostly analog or non-digital, whatever, printed. But, this has also got some analog aspects. So we've got, like playing cards and everything like from
They
the
look very cool.
from the game. Yeah, I think they turned out pretty nice. We're still working on the box and everything, but, you got the aces here and all that. So we've been kind of trying to see if we could combine the two. And this game, Aces and Adventures, it was created with cards, like just, little note cards that we would write on. So the entire game is printable and playable. One of the things that made it interesting to design in that, and I think should be hopefully a good thing for the game, is that all the numbers are kept very simple. You can kind of figure out what's going to happen from your hand just by playing the pair. You're going to deal 2 damage. If you have a thing that does more damage with a pair, well, you're going to deal 3 damage. It's not much math. And that comes from being physical first.
That sounds incredible. And one thing that I think that the game it's amazing is that, as you said, it's like a tabletop, and I'm really into the tabletop, experience overall. And that's probably the best thing, alongside with, the adventure side of things. The dubbing was excellent, honestly. Do you really get the vibe of every adventure? And correct me if I'm wrong, but each run, it's really, you can do it in a short amount of time, even though it's extremely replayable. So it's like very easy to play, to pick up and play,
Yeah. Our concept was to have each campaign be sort of the same kind of nugget of gameplay that something like a duel in Hearthstone would be. You sit down, you hammer out one campaign, and then you're either ready for the next one or, go about your day.
That sounds really, really cool. And are you planning on, future updates alongside the life cycle of the game? Is the game coming up, as an entire game, as an entire full experience?
Mm-hmm. We hope that we're going to be able to release the game in a very complete state. The only thing that may or may not be there at release, we're still working that out a little bit, is whether or not we're going to have the procedural campaign. So the procedural would basically just be using a lot of the same assets. You're going to get a lot of the same enemies, a lot of the same items, but we'll add a few. And you'll have maybe like a little compass or something that you can click and see which paths you can choose to see if you want to try to level up or go for an item. A little bit of that, but it'll be procedural in the nature that it'll be random, so that you can, without any real encumbrance by story, you just go in, you fight, you go to the next fight, you go to the next fight, and the fights are just organized a little bit randomly so that it's fresh every time. And there'll be 13 levels of that, so you'll start off with the easy run and then progress up to level 13.
Yes, and of course the difficulty will scale up, but since it's, there are short runs, it's not going to be frustrating to repeat it and try it over and over again.
Right.
And that sounds really cool. And I saw that as a studio, you did something very different, in the past, but then you are trying to innovate with. And honestly, probably it's one of the most fascinating things about indies is that, you can basically switch and change in every game. And what is your vision? I'm really curious. What is your vision and your, mission? What do you want from your games? What is your creative approach towards games?
Well, actually, our studio name is Triple B Titles, and so the people ask us like, well, what is like? Do you have like 3 people with B's in their names, or what is that about? And no, it's kind of like just the objective is to create a definitely B game, an indie game. We don't have the capacity to make AAA games, but that has a lot of replayability. That gives you kind of the same sort of amount of entertainment, hopefully, or more for your money than a AAA title could. So you can go in, you can get a AAA title, and some of them are just that one experience where you do it once and it was a really great experience, but it lasts 20, 24 hours, whatever it might be. And some of them are, you're going to play for the next 100 hours. So we try to create games that have a lot of replayability, so that you get a lot of bang for your buck.
Absolutely, and for a very honest price as well as also in the games.
Right.
And about art and the overall story approach, do you take inspiration from something? Are you the one who develop all these things, and or did you start from an idea and say, oh, wow, this art style, it's amazing? Or do you start from a story or from the gameplay? What is your main pillar related to
Well,
game?
The concept with the art, or rather the look of the game, was that not many people are going to be crazy enough to make a card game in HDRP in Unity. It makes it a little less accessible to some systems. Because we're using sort of the latest pipeline, we're adding volumetric lighting and all this stuff. So it's like a very richly rendered card game. And the actual art style is such that we can create because we are 3 people. I'm not an artist. My brother's not an artist, so that leaves one artist. Then we have to, hire artists to come in and fill in the gaps just as freelancers. But I'm a modeler. I'm a 3D, modeler, and I can work with environments and stuff. So that's the kind of thing that I do. While my wife, who's the artist, she takes care of creating all of the characters and enemies and all this. And I do the writing, and I direct the voice acting and all that. So at the end of the day, it's just kind of whatever we can do. And the actual inspiration as to what we're attempting to do just comes from classic mythology, just sort of a blend of Middle Eastern, Norse, classic just European stuff, even some Eastern influences, and just trying to combine that into a story that's kind of like not exactly I don't know if you're familiar with this over there in Italy, but there's a movie called Fern Gully. Are you familiar with this? Okay, so it's like the original eco warrior, like for the environment kind of movie. So we didn't want to go that heavy-handed with it or anything, but this isn't really like. It seems like it's like all about the environment, like kind of tree hugger stuff, because obviously you're trees and you're saving a tree and everything. But it's actually more like life versus the factors that corrupt life, if that makes sense. So that was the overarching theme of the game.
It's very fascinating that you could do this kind of games, which are honestly very complex in their simplicity, because of course the concept is simple, but there is a huge gap beneath what lies beneath the actual game. And just 3 people for this kind of game, it's incredible, honestly. And even especially if it's like your brother and your fiance, that's very great. And again, this is one of the best things about indie studios is that everything is inside the family,
Yeah.
And probably it's one of the best things in the games. And are you planning on are you already thinking about other projects, or are you sticking with this?
Well, like I said, we've been thinking about the other version of this same game, which is a D&D, Dungeons and Dragons alternative. So we do already have like a working, I guess what you'd call very rough prototype of that as far as how the gameplay works. Again, another part of the sort of mantra behind that is just keeping it simple. Like we want it to be easier to play than Dungeons and Dragons, but without doing something that I think that a lot of games that do Dungeons and Dragons alternatives do, which is that they just go like, well, Dungeons and Dragons takes like 40 minutes at least to get started, and it's super complex, and you need a book and all this. So let's throw all of that away. You just need one dice. You know, it's like, no, it's got to be a little bit complicated. Like the thing that's draws me to like Magic the Gathering and Dungeons and Dragons is that there's a sort of scholarly thing. There's like an arcane knowledge that comes with it. So we're trying to retain some of that, but simplify it, make the combat more interesting and faster, and keep, you know, basically the main hook is replacing the dice with cards. But you have a hand here, so you also have your like fuel. So if you really want to get something done, you can kind of save your roll. You've got your roll saved here, and you play the ace when you really want to make sure this works. And when you don't care, you just top deck and you just see what you get.
And you pray on your top deck, which is, you know,
which is what you have to do with a dice anyway. You just roll it and hope that it happens.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the same exact thing. So you have a very, you know, tabletop approach, or more classic RPG approach, which is fantastic because, again, video games are extremely suitable for this kind of thing. So yeah, I can't wait to, you know, play the entire game. I hope that, you know, your campaign will go well. We decided to do this collaboration because we honestly thought that the game was amazing. I hope that we will be able to do more collaboration together. And I highly suggest all of our backers to help out on, you know, on this, especially because, again, if you like card games, I'm sure that you will like both projects. So.
Well, great. Is there anything else that you wanted to add before we close this out?
Of course. Yeah, if you please wish list both the games on Steam, when you have the chance, and please check out both of the Kickstarter pages because they are both excellent projects, and support your indie games because we care, and we plan to do great ideas that are outside the main market, but they are all extremely fascinating. So if you have time, check them out.
Great. And if you're watching this,
thank you very much for your time.
Yeah. And if you're watching this on YouTube, like, comment, subscribe, and all that stuff. And thank you for watching.
Bye-bye. See you soon.
Bye-bye.